episode, I'm going to be doing something called a microphone shootout. Now, for those of you who are not as familiar with the audio world, a shootout is when you take several microphones, either of similar quality or of wildly different qualities, and you compare them kind of head to head by recording the exact same performance so that you can hear the difference between the microphones. If you do multiple performances, oftentimes the difference in the performance can color someone's perception of how the test turned out. You know, minute differences in the way that it was performed can jump out to the ear stronger. So by doing a single recording of a single performance, it truly isolates the microphone. Now, a couple notes to know as we go into the video. Number one, go ahead and grab a pen and paper if you don't have it, or something to take notes with. And you'll want to write down, with some room to take notes, the following colors: red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, and violet. And yes, that's Roy G. Biv of the color spectrum fame. And so those are the code labels that I'm going to use for each microphone test that we'll be doing. So each one of those represents a specific microphone and setting, so that you can hear and compare. And I'm going to go in that order every time through the video. Now, the microphones themselves are in an arbitrary order, so that's randomized, but I will do the colors in the same order each time so that you can kind of go down the list and compare and pick which ones you like the best. I'm going to have labels at the bottom of the screen that will show the colors as they're going by. Also, this video is best viewed with either headphones, a good quality pair of headphones, or a controlled listening space to get the biggest effect. Finally, as I mentioned in the video, I recorded all of the audio of the nice microphones at 96 kilohertz. Now, this worked out for all of them, but the video I recorded at 48 kilohertz. Now, I downsampled the 96 kilohertz files to 48 kilohertz, but because of the differences in the sample rates, there ended up being some audio drift in the video. So as we go along in the video during the testing portion, you're going to see that the video actually gets off track with the audio, and then I catch it up again at the very end. Bear with that, and that's just to make sure that now the colors will be in sync. So the color and the sound are directly correlated, and those are in fact in sync. But you'll see in the video that the audio and video get off track in certain portions. And that's due to the sample rate issue. So for future reference, I was attempting to do high fidelity audio at 96, but what I should have done is recorded everything at 48 so that they would all stay in sync. Lesson learned. Remember, if you find this video useful, I would greatly appreciate it if you like, subscribe, and share with your friends. I decided to take the journey into the freelance life a little over 1 year ago. Now before this, I was in the military, the Air Force to be exact, in a career field that ultimately I didn't enjoy. So one of the ways that I decided to make the transition was by going down to part-time in the military as an Air National Guard member. And I was lucky enough to find a new job in the Air National Guard that would let me, it's called cross-training, and that's where you get a new job and then they send you to school and you get the training for it. So I cross-trained into broadcast journalism, which essentially, on top of kind of being news and reporting and camera work, is also audio production and doing radio shows and things like that, but just in the military. Well, my school for that is 4 months long, and it starts here in a couple of weeks. So I've been thinking about mobile recording rigs because I'm not going to stop doing music and production work while I'm out there. So I was comparing all of the different options that I have for doing mobile recording. And that led me to this, the kind of ultimate mic shootout, if you will. Now, one thing you should know up front, you're going to be hearing the audio change as I talk about what's happening here. So pay attention. I'm going to label it on the screen. You'll see here at the bottom the different labels. And so pay attention to that later and you'll see why I'm doing it. Okay, so first off, let's talk about the setup. What inspired this was the other day I was doing some homework. I've been finishing up a master's certificate in guitar for Berklee College of Music, their online degree program. And so a lot of the times I'm doing homework on the go with my laptop, and I have a Apogee Jam 96K kind of real super mobile recording interface. In fact, it looks a little bit like this. Oh yeah, there you go, Apogee Jam. So it plugs in, it's got a guitar cable on one end with a USB port on the other, and then a gain control. It's super simple audio interface. Now, I've been using this quite a bit. I like Apogee stuff. I've owned their interfaces before. It's always quality, although I would say that, sometimes they can, to me, they seem to be a little bit hyped, but it's very quality stuff. So I got the Jam, and I actually do like it a lot. And then I also have here, you'll see in this camera angle, the Zoom H6, which I use a lot for sound design and field recording work. Now, the nice thing about the H6 is that it's still very portable, but I've got a lot of tonal options. So I've got a shotgun microphone, an XY mic, a mid-side capsule, plus 6 total inputs that you can use for either XLR or TRS. So as I was thinking about a mobile recording rig that's super portable and does everything I need, I said, well, why not just skip the Jam and I'll just bring the Zoom H6. So I plugged my guitar, my Traveler guitar, into it to start doing homework, and noticed that it was extremely warm, like more noticeably. And when I say warm, I don't mean it in a good way. I mean kind of like a high-end roll-off, if you will. So it sounded very muddy almost. And I was like, man, what's going on? I adjusted the gain settings. I'm looking at my EQ. I thought maybe something went wrong. And so then I was like, no, I think that's actually a different preamp tone. So I played a chord recording with the Zoom at 96 kilohertz. And then I switched over to the Apogee Jam at 96 kilohertz just to compare apples to apples. And the Jam had a noticeably cleaner, brighter tone to the guitar, much more detailed and crisp in the high end, and not subtly either. It was quite a bit different. It would have required some EQing to the Zoom to make it the same way, but I've had a bunch of success recording really good, crisp, detailed sound effects with the Zoom using microphones. So that just got me thinking, like, wow, okay, well, I wonder which one is actually the best. So here's the lineup. And we're actually going to do a couple of different things. On top of a mic shootout, we're also going to directly compare the preamps of the Zoom H6, which is, I would call it a mid-range kind of interface, I guess. It's in the $400 to $500 range. So it's not low end, but it's not a high end interface as well, kind of solidly middling. Then I've got over there for my home studio, I have an RME Fireface 802, which I would say is on the higher end of the prosumer side, or maybe the low end of the professional side. It's a very good interface, high quality, really good preamps, easily comparable to Apogee stuff, for example. So I'm recording both. So here on the microphones, I've got 2 matched pairs that we're going to be comparing, along with Zoom's shotgun microphone attachment that goes with the H6. And then just for kicks, I'm also going to be comparing the on-camera microphone. I've got a Rode Stereo Videomic Pro hooked up to the Canon here, which you can't see, but it's on that camera view. And then the humble iPhone 6 Plus microphone. We're going to see how it all washes out in the end and see how it comes up. All right, so the lineup that we have. I've got 2 Rode NT55 condenser pencil microphones. So these are small diaphragm microphones, and they've got some switchable options. I think there's a pad, 20 dB pad, and then a bass roll-off option on the microphones. So all the settings are neutral currently. Now the key difference here is that I'm actually running one Rode NT55 into the Zoom H6 preamp, and then I'm running the other one into the RME 802, and I'm recording them simultaneously. So the Zoom is here and the RME is there, and they're both recording. They're both at 96 kilohertz, so there shouldn't be any sample rate differences. There's some minor differences in the gain settings. So I think the Zoom's maximum gain is plus 55 dB, and the RME goes to plus 60. So the RME is rolled down just a little bit to closely match the levels as much as possible. The only editing that I will do after the fact in the video as you're hearing them switch is strictly for levels. I'm not going to do any EQ, no reverb, no nothing. So you are hearing raw microphone sound. And then finally, I'm going to be downsampling the 96 kilohertz to 48. But all of them are equally recording at 96, with the exception of the iPhone and the camera's microphone. Those are native at 48. So we'll be able to compare again to those and see how they sound. Okay, so you've already been hearing some of the changes. So I've got the Rode NT55s. Then here, you can see I've got AKG Perception 420 microphones, and this is also a matched pair. These are large diaphragm condenser microphones with switchable polar patterns, and also with a bass roll-off option and a gain pad of 20 dB as well. Right now they're both set to the cardioid position on each one, but at the end of the test I'm going to switch these two and we'll switch to Omni and then figure 8 to see how they compare. And again, one is into the Zoom's preamp and the other is into the RME preamp. Finally, we've got the actual Zoom native shotgun microphone that's here. Now you'll notice from this angle over here that the diaphragms are a little bit offset from each other by maybe about an inch. That makes the test a little bit unscientific. That's about as close as I could get because of the base stand of the microphone here. But they are close indeed, and I'm standing back far enough where it shouldn't be too much of an issue as I switch between. Okay, so now that you've heard some dialogue here from a distance, I'm going to lower my voice and we're going to compare some closer proximity-based stuff. So now I'm about 6 inches away from the microphones and I am speaking at a lower volume. I'm going to try to raise the volume on the Canon microphone and the iPhone microphone so that you can hear the differences. Compare the differences without the noticeable volume roll-off as a possible factor there. Another thing of note is that you should probably be hearing my kids in the background. They're outside, but these mics are really sensitive, so I'm sure you're picking some of that up. So that'll also give you an idea of the detailed of the mics, because they are through a closed door and about 20 feet away on the patio. So that's what you're hearing if you hear the kids playing around. Okay, so now here is a little bit of room tone. So this room, I believe, is about lengthwise 25 feet by 17 feet. So it's a fairly spacious room. I do have some acoustic treatment, but it's fairly live, as you can hear. So I'm speaking a little bit louder so that you can hear how the echo is. So the next test is I'm going to grab a nylon string guitar followed by a steel string guitar and play those a little bit so that you can compare the differences between all of these mics. Okay, forgive any mistakes in the playing. I don't have a strap, I'm just kind of holding it to myself here. So first I'll do some detailed finger picking quietly and I'll be closer in on the mics. Okay, and a little bit louder with some strumming. Close again once more, and now I use all 6 strings for the picking. Okay, now for the steel string guitar, same thing, I'm holding it, I don't have a strap here, so forgive any errors in the guitar playing, but I'll try to make it clean and neat, and I'll play similar stuff so that you can compare. So this is close in, finger picking. Okay, from a distance, a little more room tone with strumming. Finally, close in, but finger picking with all 6 strings. Okay, so now that you've had a chance to hear and compare, I hope you'll stop the video here, take notes on each one of the labels that I provided for the different options. They're not in order, it's supposed to be a little bit random so that you kind of have to discern and pick the ones that you like best. And there may not be a best, there may be one that's good for certain applications, and that's why I tried to show just a few different examples. So from here, again, pause the video, rewind, go make notes on the different options, and then I will go do some editing and we'll compare, and at the very end I'll tell you what my choices were. You can compare and see what you thought. Okay, ready? This is your last chance, so stop the video if you want to go back and listen again. Also, I should say at this point, if you would like, you can visit my website, www.srfaudio.com. And in the Contact Me button, send me an email if you'd like, and I can send you the uncompressed WAV files of the raw recordings at least, not the camera. I mean, I guess I could send the camera ones too, but I can send the raw recordings from the mic at 96 kilohertz so that you can throw those in your digital audio workstation and compare them for yourself before you get the answers here. All right, spoiler alert, here are the answers. Okay, so we'll go in order. The first one, red, that was the Rode NT55 plugged into the RME Fireface 802 preamp. Okay, so next was orange, and orange was the AKG Perception 420 plugged into the RME preamp. Yellow was the Zoom SGH6 shotgun microphone. Green, that was the AKG 420, but plugged into the Zoom preamps. Blue was the iPhone microphone, straight off the iPhone. Now, in fairness, let's consider that you may have found blue to be subpar in certain settings, but remember, that was actually, you can actually see it there. There's a, here I'll point it out. This band right here, so it's actually off-center a little bit and not even pointing at my voice. So that's really not giving it a totally fair shot because it didn't get the same placement as the other ones. Now that said, typically if you're recording video on an iPhone, it would be hard to turn the phone and get good placement on the mic. So that's a fairly decent representation of iPhone recording if you're doing video. For audio, it might be a different story. Okay, big tirade about that. Let's see, blue, indigo. Indigo was the Rode Stereo Videomic Pro mounted on the Canon. And then finally, violet was the Rode NT55 into the Zoom preamp. Okay, so that's the big reveal. Now, choice-wise, let's see, so I actually had kind of a tough time. I think the biggest takeaway from all of this that I would want you to take is that none of these were unusable, as you heard. You know, a couple were better than others, obviously, but none of them were completely unusable. So, you know, don't let gear and the wishing for more gear stop you from making good content, because it's totally possible even with bare minimum gear. All right, so that said, for the most part, I tended to like the NT55 and the AKG 420. However, where I was kind of surprised was that it depended on the application for which preamp I liked. So for example, the steel string acoustic guitar, I think I preferred the NT55 into the Zoom, which I thought was a little surprising. But for vocals, like for my voice and speaking for the most part, I think I almost always picked the AKG into the RME. You know, and again, I have a bias because I knew which one was which, so that probably colored my perspective a little bit. But I did try to listen and kind of forget about which one was which and like identify just from listening, like, whoa, I liked that one, which is that. Now, that said, the shotgun microphone on the Zoom, okay, it was a little bit hyped on the high end, and you could hear it, that, you know, it was noticeably kind of crisper and maybe more brittle in the high end. Not as warm and deep and full as the AKG or the NT55, but respectably held its own. I was quite surprised. You know, again, perfectly usable signal from a shotgun. And then the Zoom's preamps. Now, on the nylon string guitar, I think that's where the Zoom's preamps kind of fell apart a little bit, in that really detailed stuff. You could tell, if you go back and listen, all of the Zoom stuff has this tendency to sort of be brittle sounding and kind of break up, not audibly break up, but it sounds noticeably brittle, especially compared to the RME's preamp. The RME stays very neutral and full. You get this really deep, full response from the RME that's actually not as hype. So when you hear the Zoom, it sounds like the high end is a little more, so initially it's like, oh, that's, you know, it's brighter, but then when you listen to it, it's more brittle as well. Just my opinion. And then, okay, so the Rode on-camera mic, I was actually fairly impressed with that too, in the sense that, you know, by nature you're going to be getting room tone by using that, unless you're right up on the lens, you know, as you're recording, which most people aren't. So you're going to have room tone, and that by nature makes it a less bass heavy recording. So it was thinner, more mid-rangey, you know, that kind of stuff. And the iPhone mic actually didn't perform too terribly bad. There was a couple where it was noticeably, you know, like, oh yeah, that's obviously the lowest quality of all of them. But again, there was a lot where, you know, as you're listening to this, knowing the difference in price between all this hardware, you know, it's not deal breaker. It's noticeably different, but you could do something with that recording if you put enough work into it. So anyway, I hope this has been interesting for you, and I hope that helps you. I think the takeaway is that yes, gear does make a difference, but don't make excuses for not having gear, because the most important thing is getting a good quality performance in front of the microphone.